Hello and welcome to TrojanVision One-on-One, where we get to know the people here at Troy University who make it such a special place. I'm your host, Stephanie East, and joining me today is Chris Stagl, an associate professor in the College of Art and Design and the assistant chair of Art and Design in the College of Communication and Fine Arts here at Troy. It's a mouthful to get out.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us here today. We're excited to talk about all that you've got, so many projects going on and so many cool things that you're working on.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself, such as your background and what led you here to Troy University.
So I came to Troy right in the middle of COVID. It was fall of 2020. When I got here, all of my students had masks on and I didn't see their faces for a year, and it was wild to start a new job that way. As a matter of fact, I felt like I couldn't breathe for about 6 months leading up to the job, because I was just kind of holding my breath, making sure that, that the position was going to stay in place, because a lot of things were being eliminated during that time, just nationwide. And so prior to that, I was a dean in Tennessee at a private college, and prior to that, I was in a very similar role that I'm in now in Eastern North Carolina. I've bounced a little bit around the United States. I started my formal education and then career in Florida, and I went out to California for a few years, went to Colorado, and then came back to Florida, spent quite some time there, a little bit over a decade, and then left Florida again, and but for the past 5 years I've been in Troy here, in Troy, Alabama.
Well, tell us where you're from originally and what
Sure.
you studied in college.
Sure. So for originally, kind of from upstate New York. Although when you tell somebody who's actually from upstate New York that you're from Tompkins Cove, which is about an hour north of Tarrytown, if you're familiar with the area, they say that's not really upstate. And then, but my prime years I spent in Florida, and I grew up in Ocala, and I went to undergrad in the University of North Florida in Jacksonville, and I studied graphic design. Prior to that, I was actually at a junior college in Ocala where I studied journalism. And so that was my first love, was my journalism life. And when I got into undergrad, I kind of started to switch over to do more of the design heavy stuff. And so I went that route, and then I went to graduate school at Florida Atlantic University for media production and 3D animation. And then I started working as a tenure track professor at the University of North Florida. And from there, I just kind of continued to work in education for the past 25 years now, and so it's been a long time. And but yeah, that's basically the origin story of how that came to be.
Well, what made you want to teach? What was that passion to educate students?
So, I can't really put my finger, I've thought about that a lot. That's a great question. And I can't really put my finger on a moment in time where I thought to myself like, oh, now I have to go do this. But what I do remember is when I was in my very last semester of undergraduate school, I just remembered the quest to learn more. Mm-hmm. I just always thought like, oh, I barely scratched the surface, and I'm now done with undergrad. And it was at a really volatile time maybe for technology, because the internet was just kind of rearing its head into the world of mass media and design and entertainment. I mean, the internet has been around for a long time, but it wasn't really mainstream as far as a communication tool until the 90s. And that's about when I was finishing up undergrad. And so I had learned a piece of software called Macromedia Director. And this was even before Flash had come out. And I remember when I learned that piece of software, I thought to myself, there's got to be more. There has to be more for me to do. And then I was introduced by a faculty member to 3D animation, and then 3D animation. And this was on the precipice of Pixar. Mm-hmm. So this was, way, way back before Toy Story and all that. And so I got into 3D animation, and I thought this could be a really cool Master's of Fine Arts to get, but I don't really consider myself a fine artist. And so I was trying to, qualify why I would necessarily go for a degree like that. And in doing my research, what I realized was, well, there's always the path of teaching, and at the college level. And I always loved the college environment. I loved my college classmates, and so to this day, I still consider some of them to be very good friends. And so I thought to myself, you know what, I could really see myself in a classroom as a creative professor in some capacity. And I think that's really what led me to graduate school, and ultimately, and almost immediately led me into a classroom teaching.
Well, speaking of teaching, so tell us some of the courses that you have taught and that you currently teach here at Troy.
Sure. When I got here, I was teaching typography and motion graphics and user experience, which for us, it's kind of like a video production class, and design studio, portfolio, business of art and design. So right now, or since I've been here, and then in culmination with what I'm teaching now, I will have probably taught about half to 3/4 of the curriculum for graphic design, and that's on ground and online. So I also run the online program for Troy's graphic design major. We have that online offering there, and between the two, I feel like I've probably taught everything, but maybe there's a class or two. It feels that way, but maybe there's a class or two that are outside my wheelhouse, and so I probably haven't. So, but right now I'm currently teaching design studio, business of art and design, portfolio, motion graphics, and user experience.
Well, you touched on this a little bit, but if we were to think about, say, something like graphic design,
sure,
how have things changed from, say, when you were in college to what you teach your students now?
Oh, massively and immensely. So when I went to college, we did have some Mac computers, but they were not what we know Macs to be today, right? So, and a lot of them still were black and white screens, but we were doing much more tactile design. We were doing paste, especially in the world of newspapers. There was no InDesign. We did have a piece of software called Quark. However, we were doing paste ups so we would, for instance, print out a headline, run it through a glue machine, and then we paste that to what was called blue line paper. And so the blue lines on the paper didn't print, right? And so it was full size, which I can't remember the scale of it now, but the full size newspaper spreads, and we would paste those up. And then when the paper was complete, we would literally take a paste up and we send it off to the printer. And they were a subsidiary of the New York Times, and so they would print it locally for us in Ocala, and then we would distribute that. But I mean, the technology, it's enormously, massively different. When I was growing up, we had CorelDRAW, and I had Adobe Photoshop, like 1 or 2 at the most. And now we're into the 20s and 30s. And so we have Creative Cloud, which didn't exist. We had some Adobe and Aldus programs, but for the most part, they were very, very minimal. And the technology now is, it's light years ahead. Technology, especially in this design and media industry, has just, as you know, it's exploded in the past 20 years.
Well, and with everything and technology growing and so many things online, do you see more and more students getting into careers like graphic design?
I feel like we're trending upwards with our student population. It seems that the classes are pretty full, that the students are very excited to be there, and it does seem like there is a trend that there are students that are just kind of more interested in it. I will say, however, though, some of our most creative students and most competent students that come through, they are IDS majors too, where they're able to kind of mix and match those degrees. And I know, trust me, I know that I'm here to promote my own program, but I don't want to, sleep on the idea that those IDS majors that come in and they have some journalism background and they have graphic design and they have studio arts or business and marketing. I think those students, they bring such a unique view of the arts that they're equally as creative as well. And so I don't want anyone to think, well, if I'm going to get a degree in graphic design, it has to be either a major or a minor. No, you can also, you can go that IDS route and learn, video production, or you can go and, you can learn photography, and then you can also pair that with graphic design.
Yeah, those interdisciplinary majors where you take 3 minors and put them together. We do see a lot of communications, journalism, and graphic design because it does all merge together so well.
It all dovetails really well. And, I guess maybe specifically thinking about some of the previous students that I've had, Zach Papanastos was an IDS student who he graduated last year, and he's now, working in the industry in Atlanta. He works at a video production company and a creative house, and he does everything from podcasts to video editing to animation. So he's, just a really great example of somebody that didn't come out just with a graphic design degree, but came out with a kind of more well-rounded degree and is doing excellent.
Well, now, one of your passion projects that you started here at Troy is the Yellowhammer Film Festival.
That's right.
Tell us why that became your passion project and a little bit about how it's grown over the years.
Sure. So it was funny because it was really the summer before I ever started here. I remember having a conversation with the chair at the time, Pam Allen, and Pam we were talking about research interests and, where I kind of saw my trajectory going. And I said to her, I'm a little bit shocked that there's not a bigger influence in film at Troy, and given how amazing that the journalism department is and the design departments were kind of on their own. And I thought, how fun would it be to have some kind of festival, some kind of and I do believe that there was one that they had a few years here at the college before I got here, but I think it had tapered off. And then when I got here, it was right in the middle of COVID, and I was looking for a grant to write and, some creative outlets for my students to show their work. And I thought, it'd be great is if we could go into a theater, show the work, make it some kind of a film day or something like that. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to throw caution to the wind. I'm going to take some chances and some risks here, and I'm going to write a grant. We're going to call it the Yellowhammer Film Festival. And by the way, that name, which I get asked about a lot, the festival is named after the state bird of Alabama, which is the yellowhammer. A lot of people don't know that. And so I just said, I'm going to give this a shot and see how it goes. And literally the first festival, we did open it up regionally, but it was very regional and it was very much Troy student focused. And so I had a lot of students from my motion graphics and my user experience class that had class projects. And to this day, 5 years later, we still have people submitting class projects. They still get in and they still win awards. So, but it's grown in leaps and bounds. I think last year, the first year, just for context, we had, I want to say 75 submissions. Wow. And last year we had, I think it was 600.
Wow.
From around the country. And so we had, I want to say 15 different sponsors, from people that funded our grant to people that just wanted to help, to guest speakers, to media companies like Angel Bird and Black Magic that gave us swag to give away at the festival. And it's just it gets bigger and bigger every year, and it just really, it makes me smile to think about how successful it's been and all the work that we've screened now. So every year we try to screen 20 films and 10 animations. And so now, coming up on our 5th year, we're going to be, approaching, unknown territory, but also just having shown a ton of films, right? Probably going to hit the 200 mark this year. Wow. of films that we've been able to show and really promote. It's all about promoting the student work and allowing young filmmakers to get their message out there for free, because we don't charge anything to be a part of it. And I've come on to shows like this before to promote it, and we get a really good turnout from the community, a really good turnout from students and faculty and staff. And so, yeah, we're excited to keep that going. It happens typically every October.
Every October. So tell us a little bit about the different divisions that students can enter in the film festival.
So we have student high school division, student college division, and then we have the animation division. And so there are no pro categories. It's all students. So you can either be high school, college, and then in the animation division, we put high school, and because we don't get a ton of animations from high school, so we typically just put them and they compete with the college students. But the high school winners and the college winners, we typically screen the top 10 to 15 films in each division. And usually if you're being screened, you're winning some kind of an award. And we've seen in the past 2 or 3 years the number of students from the local areas. They show up, they're there to get their prize, they get to go up on stage, photo opportunity, they bring their families. It's an incredible experience.
And some of the students that have entered the film festival have had some big successes too. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, we've had students from Troy who have entered and have won, and we had just, oddly enough, just to kind of have some through lines with this, we also host a film camp in the summer, and the film that was made at film camp 2 years ago actually won the high school division last year at Yellowhammer. And so it was an incredible feat that film actually came from a film camp here. And just so that there's no question, there is no bias, because I'm not a judge. Nobody here is a judge. We bring in third-party judges. And the young lady that scored that competition looked at 7 or 8 different films that got ranked really high. And she was an editor on Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, yeah.
The Academy Award-winning film. And she was also our keynote speaker that year, Chastity Jade. And so she actually chose that film as the top film in the competition. And so it was really incredible to see students that had come to a film camp to make that go on to win the entire festival.
That is so exciting. Yeah, we really want to encourage the community to come out and watch those films when the film festival takes place.
It's a lot of fun.
So tell us, you are also the director of IC3, the International Center for Collaboration and Creativity. Tell us more about that.
So really, that was an effort established many years ago by Jerry Johnson, and Jerry has since retired, and I was lucky enough to come in and fill Jerry's seat on the team. And what Jerry handed me, truthfully, it was just an opportunity, right? And it's an opportunity as much as anybody wants to be involved with other countries and going and learning and teaching and being a part of other schools. And so since I've been here in the 4.5 years now that I've been here, I've been able to travel to China and visit Changzhou, the Changzhou Institute of Technology. Sorry, I almost blanked on the name there. And then in Spain, I went to the University of Zaragoza. So in 2023, I went to China with Greg Skaggs, my chair. And in 2024, I went to Spain on my own. And in both of those locations, I was able to teach in their classrooms. In Changzhou, I was there with Greg, and in Spain, I was there with a counterpart. His name is Alfonso, and he taught in Spain there with me for a week. In China, we were there for a little bit over 2 weeks, but in both locations, I was able to teach how to make a short documentary, and those documentaries really focus on the students and the local community. It gives them a chance to be in front and behind the camera, and then they kind of sit back. Once the heavy lifting is done and the film production is done, we give them an opportunity to kind of watch and learn how to edit it and put it all together and get it packaged for distribution. And so the first day or two is spent teaching them the technology. Then we're in basically production mode where we're out in the community filming. And then the last few days is spent editing and tightening everything up. And then at the end of it, we bring a lot of people into the room, from their teachers to their family, and we invite them to watch the film with us. And it's very successful and we have a lot of fun with it. But really IC3, at its soul, I think, is just the opportunity to network with other schools and to be a part of something bigger than Troy and the United States. The opportunity to get out there and travel a little bit.
Yeah, and why is something like that so important to Troy? I mean, we are known as the international university, so that is something that's very important to the school.
Well, I can tell you why it's important to me, and I think that we can probably just extrapolate that to anybody that maybe just hasn't had a lot of opportunities. So I was, lucky enough as a kid and as a working professional to, have the opportunity to travel nationally, right? And I think when you do that, you do get a lot of influences from different cultures in the United States, but I think you're still looking at things a little bit through rose-tinted glasses, right? Mm-hmm. You're used to, as weird as it may seem, you're used to what you're used to, mm-hmm. right? It's kind of like the idea of if you grow up eating cereal every day and then one day somebody puts a bowl of oatmeal in front of you, right? It's kind of a little bit of a shock. And that shock can be really good for you, right? Because it gives your body a chance and your mind a chance to adapt to something else. That's what it was like for me when I left. I was 45 years old and I'd never been out of the United States other than for like little day trips, right? Mm-hmm. Down to Mexico or up to Canada. And when Greg said to me, "Hey, do you want to take a trip when we'll go to Changzhou?" I was just ecstatic, but I was also scared because I'd never been out of the country. I didn't know what to expect. And let me just tell you, that opportunity to go and do that, I couldn't be more thankful for that. And then just to have that experience of going to that country and, learning about those people and that culture just blows my mind. And we have a very large Chinese population in art and design. Mm-hmm. And I think them seeing us there and us trying to learn about them and their home and in their country, I think there's a lot to be said for that, right? I think there's a lot to be said for them coming here and us seeing them on the struggle bus and doing their best to learn about our culture. But then for them to look at us and see that we're over there mm-hmm. and we're the fish out of water and we're trying to learn, I think they really appreciate that. And I know the experience just blew me away. And, and then, similarly in Spain, when I went there, again, I went there on my own, no translator. I didn't have anybody with me, and so I was using Google Translate the whole time. But same thing, for me, it's just about having the experience, getting to know people, getting to document it with photography, and really just being able to go and enjoy that and try the food and meet the people and see the sights and really saturate and just immerse yourself in that local community. Because you have to remember, when Greg and I went to China, when I went to Spain, we're not there as tourists, mm-hmm. right? We're there as community members and we're learning and engaging. We're not out seeing the traditional sites. We're not walking around necessarily with 20, 30 other people with a camera taking pictures of, the famous sites. Mm-hmm. We're in neighborhoods, you know what I mean? We're eating at local restaurants and we're really getting to know the local traditions of what's going on in those towns.
What a great experience. And you mentioned your work with Spain and photography. You actually have a photography exhibit in Spain.
That's
Tell
right.
us about that.
So right now and for the past month, I've had, I think it's 15 photographs that have been, large photographs that have been shown in the University of Zaragoza art gallery there on campus in Teruel, Spain. And Teruel, just an incredible city, and I encourage anybody that go. I think a lot of times when you hear Spain, you think Madrid, and it's a couple of hour bus ride outside of Madrid, but my gosh, what a beautiful place to visit. And I really encourage anybody that's going to go to Spain to not just be locked into Madrid or any big, city, but to get to some of those outskirts and to really, see what those smaller places are all about. Because I feel like those are the real core of the community of those countries. And so, yeah, I've had about, 15 photographs being shown there. And really, they document the landscape. the inner town and the students that I got to work with while I was there. And so if you walk into the gallery, on the left side is the landscapes. Right in front of you are the town, the city, and then on the right wall are all of the student portraits.
Well, you do so many things between photography and film and documentaries and graphic design. Do you have a favorite creative outlet for you?
I really don't, and I've had students ask me that before. I'm not, to be completely fair and honest with you, I don't even consider myself a fine artist. I don't even consider myself a professional photographer. Like, I leave that to Will Jacks. I leave the fine art to Greg Staggs. I just kind of feel like I'm a blue-collar creative, right? That's just kind of how I look at myself. I just kind of float wherever the wind blows me. And so if it calls for me going and designing a logo, I'll go do that. If I need to go build a website, I'll go do that. If it's picking up a video camera and shooting a short documentary, I'll go do something like that. I'm right in the middle right now of a grant called Alabama Abroad, where I'm going to be documenting 5 or 6 different professors from Troy and their travels overseas. And so that's a grant that I'm currently working on through the Alabama Humanities Alliance. And we're going to be doing some interviews in the IAC over the course of the next few months to document folks that have traveled and things that they've learned and things that they brought back from those cultures. And we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive on 5 or 6 different folks. And so that's kind of at the top of my list of projects. And then I'm working on another grant with Dr. Carlson from the history department and his small team, where we're creating a website and some other graphics for the Veterans Cemetery, the National Veterans Cemetery, and that is down in Mobile, but we're working on that project too. It's like a veterans legacy cemetery for a troop from Mobile. And so I have a couple of grant projects going on right now, and a couple of documentary things and graphic design things. And so yeah, I've got a lot of plates spinning on the fingers, a lot of balls in the air for sure.
Well, here at Troy, what do you hope to see as the future of art and design here at Troy University?
Convergence, I think. I think in order for our program to really step into the next stage of what I'm seeing out in the industry, it has to be convergence. We've got to start figuring out a way to bring some of the arts, the journalism and the marketing and the business and the studio arts and the graphic design, motion graphics, just kind of bringing it all together. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I had IDS, a degree in my head. It's kind of one of those convergence type of degrees where, students have the opportunity to maybe build their own degree and really get involved with the arts and media and design aspects that they're very excited about. But that's what I see. I see your field and my field and the fine arts. I see a lot of those things kind of coming together and working closely. And some of the things that we talk about all the time are just collaborative projects. And so I think those collaborations and, whether it's with World Languages and Cultures and CCFA or Art and Design or whatever it might be, bringing these groups of people that work together on a daily basis into one room and saying, okay, let's pool our resources and really, build something, special and see where that takes us. Because between the strength of, a program like World Languages and Cultures and just the desire to be creative and explore that we have in art and design, like even something like that, you can see those through lines there, especially with things like journalism and marketing. And so yeah, convergence is the short answer.
Well, it'll be exciting to see what the future holds. And
sure.
We appreciate you coming on today and talking to us about everything with the art and design here at Troy. We appreciate it. Chris Stagl, thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you. Thank you.